And I am live talking about movies once again. This is Mainstream Movies Reviews. Today we cover two movies. Yes, it's a bit more than usually because it's a franchise that only has two installments. I feel like Black Phone 1 and 2 are really connected, but the magic in that, if you don't mind spoiler, is that you don't need to watch the first one to understand the second one, but the second one relies heavily on what happens on the first one. So the magic with that franchise, you can watch in any order and still understand what's going on. And it's really cool. And let's get into it. I will spoil both movies. One is 4 years old, the other is brand new. Let's get into it. So before we really do the dive deep and we spoil the entire thing, I will do the usual Wikipedia segment where I will be screen sharing everything. And we start where the timeline starts with the first Black Phone because the first Black Phone takes place 4 years prior to the sequel. I know the sequel tell a not necessarily disjointed story, but like a story that took place during many different years. This movie over Bird Box or any deaf or under or blind horror movie. It's actually a blind horror movie, I think. I'm not quite sure about blind. I know it's horror for sure. And there's a lot of jump scares. And yeah. Uh Bird Box, I don't I don't think so. And deaf, not really. There's not really a deaf person. But anyhow, that was the comment. So Black Phone is about Ethan Hawke scaring off kids. Yes, this is exactly a very simple way of putting the plot together. Um, so let's get into the screen share. Let's get into the first Black Phone that came out in 2021. Let's get into it. So, the starring we had Mason Davis, Madeline McGraw, Jeremy Davies, James Renson, Ethan Hawke. You know what's funny about that lineup? I only know about Ethan Hawke. And maybe that's why this first movie was so special. It only needed one very known actor, and pretty much everyone is not that known. And maybe I'm crazy because I think I had seen the father of the kids in other media, but he is not memorable enough for me to pinpoint exactly in which movie or TV show I've seen the guy. But the only one I could really recognize was Ethan Hawke. Maybe I'm actually wrong, and that was the father, and that's why I recognized him. Uh, I'm actually curious to see Ethan Hawke. How does it? He looks like Ethan Hawke. Yeah, so I was right. That's the bad guy. Okay. By a moment, I had a doubt that father was Ethan Hawke, but no, that was the bad guy in both movies. Anyhow, let's get into other things about this first movie. The budget was between 16 million and 18 million, and the box office at 161 million. So the first movie did its money a lot. It was a massive success. It was a small budget movie. Well, it performed very well. Let's admit that. It was a successful first entry. Let's get into the plot. In 1978, a local serial child doctor and monster known only as the Grabber prowls the street of suburb in North Denver, Colorado. Finney Blake and his younger sister Gwen live in the area with their abusive, alcoholic father Terrence, whose wife died by like that to remain YouTube friendly. after having a series of disturbing psychic dreams. Finney is frequently bullied and harassed at school, but his friend and classmate Robin fends off the bullies. Having inherited her mother ability, Gwen dreams about the grabber's abduction of Bruce, a boy Finney knew from Little League. Two police detectives, Ryan and Miller, interview Gwen at school, believing she may know the grabber. When Terrence learns about questioning, he beats Gwen. Soon afterward, the grabber abducts Robin, then Finney. So in this first movie, I think it's hinted that the oldest brother also has some kind of power. Maybe it's not as strong or dominant as his sister, but he seriously has something going on for him as well. Again, I might be wrong. Maybe I read through too much of it, but that's really all I think they wanted to portray this bigger brother, and it's the same thing with the sequel. So let's keep going with the plot of the first movie. Finney awakens in a soundproofed basement with a disconnected black rotary dial telephone on one wall. It begins to ring on its own at times. Finney hears only static when he first answers it, but then hears Bruce's voice telling him about a floor tile he can remove to dig an escape tunnel. Finney starts to dig, but the house foundation are too deep for him to go beneath them. The grabber brings Finney a meal and leaves the basement door unlocked. As Finney is about to sneak out, he gets a call from Billy, another past victim. Billy warns Finney that the grabber is waiting at the top of the basement stairs to punish him if he tries to leave as part of a cruel game. At Billy's suggestion, Finney used a hidden cable to climb up to the basement window. However, his weight pulls out the grate covering the pane, leaving him with no way to reach it again. And I think before we keep going that way, I think one of the very interesting and core aspects of that movie is how one room can really trap a child. It was fascinating how they played that concept, and it must be terrifying for a kid there. So, by extension, the viewer should also be terrified by what's going on. And I think that was the magic of that first entry in the franchise. That was very much a psychological thing with a bit of magic and mystical thing going on there, but it was mostly really one kid struggles, and yeah. As Gwen confides to Terence about her dreams of Finney's abduction, Ryan and Miller question an eccentric man named Max who stays in the area with his brother and has shown great interest in the grabber's crime. Unbeknownst to him, Finney is being held by in Max's basement, and the grabber is actually his brother. Finney receives a call from Griffin, a third victim, who gives him the combination to the lock securing the house's front door and tells him that the grabber has fallen asleep. He sneaks out and unlocks the door, but the grabber quickly recaptures Finney after his dog Samson barks to wake him. A fourth victim, a juvenile delinquent named Vince, sorry about that. I massacred that name. Called to tell Finney he can break through a wall into a freezer in the adjacent room. Finney does so, but finds the freezer door locked. As Finney despairs over his fate, he receives one last call from Robin, who urges him to stand up for himself and fight back by packing the phone receiver with dirt to use as a bludgeon. After seeing the grabber house in a vision, Gwen calls Wright and Miller and to give them the address. The police rush to the house and find the bodies of the grabbers. victim buried in the basement. Meanwhile, Max realizes Finney is being held in the basement and rushes to free him, but the grabber ends him with an axe and attacks Finney, having decided to end his game. Finney uses the byproduct from his previous escape attempt to trap the grabber in a pit he has dug, beats him with the receiver, and breaks his neck with the phone cord as his past victims taught him. So you see, that moment was one of the darkest turn that story has gotten. A child that's trapped is Silent is the attacker and was forced into ending said threat to his life. This is so dark. This is so messed up. But I think this is what made that movie so great and unique. Throwing a steak, sorry about that. Throwing a steak from the freezer to Samsung as a distraction, Finney leaves the house, which turned out to be across the street from the one the police have raided. Terrence tearfully begs Finney and Gwen to forgive his earlier treatment of them. Sometime later, now viewed as a hero at school, a newly confident Finney sits next to his crush in class and says she can call him Finn. That's the plot. And this final paragraph really depicts a lot of growth for the cast and characters. The father realizing he did something wrong, and Finney being more confident. So now I will timestamp this because this is what we do here for any playback viewer. Um, Now we will get into my review because we covered the plot. And again, we spoiled the entire thing. So I will warn again, another spoiler alarm there. Here's my review of the Black Phone, and it's kind of interesting for once. I had very similar amount of things to say about the first one and the second one, despite seeing the second one in theater. That means maybe the second one had a bit more content, you know? So let's get into it. The first thing I had to say in my review. The kids living under a toxic roof was very fun and tragic. The kids talking about standing up for themselves was cool. The dad being a monster was well shown. The sibling banter was great. The sister latching on to fate was great. It was also a thing in the sequel. Well shown how the kid was clever to realize that's his prison. The music and acting were solid. The different phone call were very fun. The sister was entertaining. The lead trying to escape was fun. The sister losing fate was really cool. The action and music were great. The lead trying to escape once again was very fun. The friend over the phone was great. The ending was emotional. I felt things while watching. The lead becoming a fighter was amazing growth. The black phone connecting the dead to the living was a great concept. The sister seeing the dead was a great reveal, and it was really bleak. It was very dark. It was very interesting. So overall, the first Black Phone is a very good horror flick, and I understand why it was so successful. It was 2021. It was probably one of the first few movies you Americans could see after the pandemic and such. I say you, the American, because Canada was still in a weird place. Let's say it that way. And it was fascinating how much money it made. So I guess people just wanted to go see it. And that's great. We need more of that. I wish the sequel was also in that area. And I have no issue, in case you didn't guess or understood. And it's a bit unfortunate. There's that kind of movie where I did enjoy that experience a lot. I think it's a very fun movie. There's just not much more to say. I That's why let's fill that video with the plot, the Rotten Tomato score at some point. Because let's be honest, sometimes you just say the right amount of things. I think the first Black Phone was for me a 10 out of 10. And and let's get into the sequel. The sequel. This sequel, again, I will spoil the entire thing. So if you don't want to be spoiled, this is your warning. We will get into the plot of Black Phone 2 with Ethan Hawke, whatever. Let's get into it. Screen share. So yeah, I've given the first Black Phone a 10 out of 10 because that's a masterpiece. And I will sound redundant. I already kind of spoiled my grades. So let's get into the sequel, folks. This is Black Phone 2. It's very interesting how the movie took place roughly 3 years after the first one. And the first one came out 4 years ago. So that's very interesting. I don't know if that was really in purpose. They wanted the movie to age as fast as the universe, but that was a really cool thing. So let's get into the plot and the starring. So, okay. Starring Mason Thames, Madeleine McGraw, Jeremy Davies. Oh, that's the guy that was in other stuff I've seen. Oh, Saving Private Ryan. That was like a movie that would pass by on TV a lot. Damien Beecher. Oh, that actor was kind of cool. Ethan Hawke, he is back as a bad guy. Unfortunately, this one is not as successful as the first one. The best explanation I got is people didn't know it needed a sequel. And I will be blunt and honest. I didn't know either. After seeing that sequel, I understand why they made it, and I'm actually very glad they did. Because that's a great sequel. So that's a factor. Another factor, it's October. This month is crowded, and even other IPs like Tron are flopping. And we also had Good Fortune, which is a new Keanu Reeves flick that came out Friday. I plan on covering that eventually. I just didn't have the time to watch it. I think it will most likely be a following week thing. I think there's another movie that comes out very soon this week, so that will be interesting. I will most likely watch 2 movies in theater Friday. But there's a lot of factors, and we are like 5 years past COVID, and I'd say the streaming platform really took over that market. So this is the best explanation on why you see these numbers. Budget 30 million, box office as of right now 42.8 million. So as of right now, it's bombing. It's so hard for me to say that word for a movie I like so much. Hopefully, finger crossed, next week more people will pull out and go see it. But I doubt it. It's very unfortunate because we still have Good Fortune out, which I will cover again. Or I should say I will cover because I didn't see it yet. And Bogodia, I think. I think Bogodia is coming out. Or I know there's something else coming out Friday. I need to watch again what will really come out. So now it only competed with like Tron and Good Fortune. Now it will compete with Tron, Good Fortune, and a new third movie. I can't remember the title. It's grim. It's bleak. I'm sorry. Maybe we won't have a third one. Now, I will be honest. I would be fine with it because I don't see how they could improve on what they did with the second one. There's no room for a third one. And I will say this. I like that one more than the first one. There's a lot of rambling going on. Let's get into the plot. Where's the plot? Where's the plot? There you go. Plot is here. In October 1982, 4 years after Finney Blake deleted the grabber, his sister Gwen begins having dream where she sees people getting ended at the Alpine Lake camp in 1957. During one of the dreams, she receives a call from her mother, Hope, who at the time of the atrocities was having similar dreams. Determined to understand the truth, Gwen convinces Finney and Ernesto, the brother of the late Robin Aurelio, to travel to Alpine Lake Camp, a Christian youth camp, where Hope also worked as a teenager. When they arrive, a heavy blizzard traps them there with only a few others. The camp supervisor Armando, his niece Mustang, and two camp employees named Kenneth and Barbara. The three kids begin investigating what Gwen's dreams might mean. And I'll pause here to plot. That movie reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street. It's funny because this month I did a big marathon of like Friday the 13th and Elm Street. Kind of funny. But let's keep going with the plot. On the second night, Finney receives a call on the camp's dead payphone. This time from the grabber speaking from death. The grabber vow revenge, blaming Finney for forcing him to delete his own brother and ending his life. Moments later, Gwen is violently attacked in her dream by the grabber, but Finney, Ernesto, and Mustang manage to save her. The shaken group gathers in the camp's chapel, where Armando and the others realize they must find the bodies of the grabber's victim from Alpine Lake Camp to loosen his power over the dream realm. The group deduces that the body are beneath Lake Meru. And you see, it's very interesting because this sequel did something new, something special, something different than the first one. And despite all of that, you see, they were able to replicate the sense of isolation the first one had with this camp because of that snowstorm around them. So kudos on that. I respect on that. It's an amazing sequel. Okay, let's keep going. As they investigate further, they discover that Armando, Hope, and the grabber had all known each other at the camp long ago. That night, Gwen is again pulled into a dream where she faces a grabber, where he reveals Hope did not end herself, and he actually staging it to look self-inflicted, and then attempts to delete Gwen. With her injuries sustained in the dream manifesting in reality, she managed to gain power in her dream and fight back before being woken up by Finney and Ernesto. Meanwhile, Armando is searching for the boys' bodies. The next day, Finney is in. Gwen's father, Terence, arrives, having borrowed a snow plow to get there. Gwen confronts both Terence and Finney on their abuse of alcohol and substance to avoid thinking about their traumatic past. They decide to stay to defeat the grabber and put the destroyed boys to rest. And that goes to one of the teams and one of the things I said in my review that I will be covering very shortly. Later joined by Kenita and Barbara, the group returns to the frozen lake to recover the three missing boys. As they search, Gwen falls asleep again and is attacked by the grabber. The grabber also attempts to end Finney, Terence, and the others present. During the struggle, Gwen locates the boys' bodies beneath the ice, removing the grabber's power. The grabber is brutally attacked by Finney, Gwen, and the spirits of the departed boys before being dragged beneath the frozen lake by the children. Next day, Gwen and Finney prepare to leave. Gwen gets a call on the camp payphone from Hope, who tells Gwen how proud she is of her, along with a message for Finney from Robin. So that's the plot of the sequel. Very different, and that movie gave goosebump to me. I had goosebump, I must say. So I will repeat what I already said, and we get into my review now. I like that movie more. It was a great experience. I have no issues whatsoever. So again, I will spoil the entire thing. Be advised, be aware, be warned. We will spoil Black Phone 2 even if we already kind of spoiled it with the plot. We will do it again, even more with my review. And again, let's speak about it. I will just scroll up because it's a bit higher. There we go. Great sequel about PTSD and trauma. I will say I respect them very well because that's a trope in horror flicks. A lot of horror movie take that route. But this one did it in a unique way. The music was great, the jump scare were solid, the atmosphere of isolation was solid. As good as the first one, and the most fascinating part, we had a cast of characters stuck in that isolated place. The lore reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street, but done better. The movie was great at showing overtelling. The humor was amazing, the cast and character were amazing. A few other notes. Religion is depicted as dated and in an isolated bubble in time, just by their ways of doing things, acting like it's the 50s while the movie was taking place in the 50s. And I think it was very good. I enjoyed that aspect a lot. And I feel like even if it's a bubble in time, I think it will still resonate with people today. I mean, I've seen it today and I praise it for it. There are movies where it's a bubble in time and you're like, yeah, it didn't age well. But that thing was made like in 2025 and it speaks about concept from the 80s very well. So I must praise them there. I must praise them there. Father and son repeat the same errors. They don't cope well with tragedy. They escape their pain by using a substance. I remain YouTube friendly there because we all know YouTube doesn't like some words. But father and son, yeah, they're not great at coping. And that's the idea of that movie. Of course, the dad tries to be better, but the son is right into it. And it's interesting, they are in very different places because they have a very different ages, and the wound that was open in the son is fresh, it's recent, while the father now it's been a few years, so he's later in the process of healing. So it makes sense. It was very good. Mother and daughter were both ready to fight and embrace their destiny, being a big contrast to the dad and son. And I like that kind of dynamic and messaging there. Dad growth was to accept his daughter. Son growth was to understand he can't control everything and he needs to face his fears. The message of the mother is to tell the daughter she is gifted, not cursed. She needs to embrace her powers and weirdness. masterpiece. I'd say this movie was better than the first one. I got emotional. Like I felt lots of things in the first one as well, but I feel like I can point out to at least 3 times where feeling were in eye gear in me. I won't say I teared up, but like I felt it. Like there are other movies where I did tear up, and yeah, not that one, but I felt things. That movie was really griping. It was very good. It's in my top 10 of this year. If I remember correctly, it's like 7 or I think it's 7 or 8. It's quite high. It's just underneath Opus. As of right now, Opus is still one of my top picks for this year. But Black Phone 2 is massive. It's a great movie. I highly recommend. And I will give a 10 out of 10, just like the first one. But this one is just a notch higher. Like, say 11 out of 10. As far as that. So, if you have been around for quite some time, you know the next segment. The next segment is the Rotten Tomato segment. Let's get into it. What did people think of the sequel? We won't really dive deep into the first one with the Rotten Tomato score because it's a 4 years old movie. But let's just capture what the people had to say about the sequel, including the critics and the audience. So let's get into it. The first critique: what's notable about Black Phone 2 is how unlike the Black Phone it is in some ways. That may provoke disappointment from some quarters, but it also makes for a unique, unexpected experience. Next one, it feels a lot more generically derivative. So that person is just like, yeah, I've seen it many times. A bit unfortunate, but I can't see where that person is coming from. For all her woo powers, Gwen remains a refreshingly full-mouthed teenager, and this time around, her and Phineas' storyline dovetail more neatly and compellingly. I think I said it right. They're like 3 times. Third time is the charm. They've lost the plot. Okay, so the critique, the top 4 critique, they didn't like it at all. To each their own, I guess. Let's get into the audience now. Erika, this movie reminds me of Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Liked it very much. I'm not crazy! That person agrees with me. But I think it's better. Like, I'd say the first Nightmare on Elm Street was the best one. I've seen them all as of right now, except the reboot. The reboot sounds so terrible. It's my next movie. I will see it right after the stream. But, gosh, some of these Elm Street are so rough to get through. But yeah, next one. And by the way, Erika gave a 5.5, so just like me. Owen hated that thing with 0.5, so that'd be like 10 out of 10 out of 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10, yeah. 1 out of 10. Razor-tin plot that's so irredeemably bad it feels like it was written by generative AI. I strongly disagree, but hey, to each your own. And I'm still not entirely convinced that it wasn't. Okay. Says one of the most incoherent and uncreative movie. I guess to each their own. Selena B, I was unsure where they would take the second movie, but I love the old film. First the actor, are all amazing. I love the look of the dream sequence, and it gives me my favorite part of the movie. Love how it was scary but not fully and more sinister vibe, and the ending is awesome. This is what Rotten Tomato had to say about that movie. So maybe I'm crazy because half of the critic didn't like it. At least the other half did. And 4 out of 5 fans did enjoy the product. With that being said, overall, that franchise is great. It's unfortunate we won't get any sequel. Well, maybe we will do if they really push for it, but it underperformed massively. Like, as of right now, it's bombing. I don't think it will get any better because there's a new movie coming out and Good Fortune is still out there. And the true question is how well Good Fortune is doing. I have no clue. I haven't even seen the movie yet. I will see it Friday most likely. That's Fridays are the days I'm going at the theater, and last week I was just occupied with so many things. That's why I only had time for a Black Phone 2. And I was a lot more excited about Black Phone 2. As much as I like Keanu Reeves, um, I liked the first Black Phone, and I was really hyped about the sequel, and it delivered. Maybe I'm crazy, but I liked Black Phone and Black Phone 2. What will happen next on the channel? Tomorrow, James Bond. We will talk about The World Is Not Enough, Die Another Day. Wednesday, we talk about Birds of Prey, that awful, terrible movie that's universally hated. I actually know a person that likes it. Unfortunately, usually that person is asleep as the stream are airing. But yeah, Birds of Prey, terrible movie. I despise that thing. And and next Saturday, political stream, the last censorship video we are doing in Canada for now, because maybe they will come up with other censorship discussing laws. So yeah, Saturday political stream about the censorship law. Hopefully, finger crossed, it'll be the last censorship thing for now, and we can move on to other political things on Saturdays. Now. Next Monday, we talk about Good Fortune. I will be like very late to the party. I will have missed the bandwagon of It's All New. And I will also cover the other movie that will come out Friday. So maybe I will match like these two movies and label it as October new movies. And yeah, that's the plan for next Monday. With this, thank you for watching the playback or during the stream. It's amazing. Let's end this.